Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is King of Cones, Bryan Gerber, CEO of Hara Supply. Thank you very much for joining me today, Bryan.
Thank you, David. I'm really excited to be here today. Appreciate it.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. Bryan, I always like to start with learning a little bit about how you got involved at the industry. So, how did the King of Cones get his start in cannabis?
So, I originally started back in 2015. I started on actually the kind of ancillary paraphernalia side of the industry. So it was about a week after I graduated from university. I went to George Washington University in DC. And basically there was a very big void in understanding and getting exposure to kind of stoner gadgets, if you will. And so we actually started with a subscription box called the Hemper box, which we've amassed over 30,000 monthly subscribers to. And that was basically kind of like the Dollar Shave Club for smoking accessories. And then about 3 years after that, we started developing our manufacturing side of the business, which started becoming more of like a product development hub, kind of a solutions partner approach to the industry. And then that's when we launched Hara Supply, which is the cone side of the business. And we went in as more of like a solutions partner, so not really just like a one size fits all. And that's there was like a huge cone shortage in the market, and essentially we came in and basically filled that void and started getting people quality products and fixing supply chain issues.
What was causing the cones shortage?
So the biggest thing is that there was really only about 2 or 3 companies in the entire world that could produce these things. And I think the major reason why is because every single cone in the world is handmade, and you need a ridiculous labor arbitrage to even produce the amount of cones that the industry needs. So right now we actually have about 4,000 employees over in India, and we're producing about 100 million cones a month for the market. And that's still not even enough, which is surprising.
That is an incredible operation, and I want to get into that more. But I also wanted to ask about that Hemper box. You said you have 30,000 subscribers. How do you determine what goes into that every month?
Yes, so we have like a full product development team here, and we kind of have like a sort of like this merchandising committee that decides what goes into each box, what products, what brands we want to promote. If it's a lot of it's actually like our own branded stuff. So we kind of took more of after about like 2 years of putting other people's stuff in the box, we kind of took more of like a Procter & Gamble approach to the subscription side and started developing like our own in-house brands that we then introduced to kind of like our own Trojan horse marketing outlet, which is the paid subscription box.
Okay. Now getting back to this incredible operation, it's 150,000 square feet of cone production. I read that you did 1 billion cones per year, but it sounds like you're doing closer to 1.2. 14 facilities in India. How do you manage all of that? And is it possible to put out a consistent cone product with that scale of operation?
Yeah, so I'll kind of take you back. So we got into cones midway through 2018, and lead times were about 15 plus weeks to get like custom branded cones in the industry, right? And so we came in and wanted to clean up a lot of the quality problems, a lot of the lead time issues. There was a lot of cleanup duty because we're producing cones in India, and unfortunately there's a lot of like sweatshop models going on there. And so everyone originally was like, oh no, I've already gotten samples from India. It's terrible quality. I'm not interested. And so we actually had to play a lot of cleanup duty, backtracking, saying, hey, no, we're not the sweatshop model. We're GMP certified, we're ISO certified, we're HACCP certified. So we got all these like certifications where we're producing cones in clean rooms. And so funny enough, my actual random roommate at college at GW is one of the business partners, and RJ actually went over to India and set up this entire operation. And so I managed the domestic team that basically does more strategy and all the sales and, kind of like business development side. And then RJ manages the entire manufacturing operation over in India. And so it kind of took us about 3 years to get up to this point, but it was a lot of dark days, trust me, developing, the processes for making these cones and trying to be a step above everybody else. And so now that we're, I guess, the largest manufacturer in the world for these things, we've become, kind of the go-to solutions partner for the pre-roll and combustible segment. So we deal with like a lot of the big tobacco companies. We deal with a lot of the big cannabis operators, so the MSOs, the big vanity brands, and we're kind of now their solutions partner for these projects, as opposed to like a one-size-fits-all model, which is what most of the other manufacturers are.
When you talk about those dark days over a 2 to 3 year period, what are some of your horror stories or greatest challenges that you had, and how did you overcome them? I got to imagine that at sometimes you thought twice about whether or not you wanted to pursue it.
Oh yeah, totally. So probably the scariest moment was, so there's two styles of pre-roll cones. There's a inferior style called an overlap cone, which is basically rolling a cone from a rectangle. And then there's the style that we roll, which is called straight line gum seam, which we cut off a right angle and make it a trapezoid. And there's no overlap when you just have one straight seam for the gum line, right? And so we actually started developing cones originally using the inferior style called overlap. And a lot of customers didn't really understand it. So originally, when we got into the pre-rolled cone manufacturing, we were actually selling all of our cones to one distributor, and then they were going to go sell them. And so they actually came back to us like, I don't know, 6 months after we sold them about, I don't know, 30 million cones, where they were like, hey, we're getting bad feedback, people they're saying they're overlap, and they had like a 14-day non-conforming clause in their agreement, which obviously they did not, exercise. So we actually ended up taking back over 30 million cones, 200 pallets of product, just to keep the relationship going. Wow. So I then took those back, and then I don't know, it's kind of funny, but certain markets in this industry care about quality and don't care about quality. So we actually offloaded all 200 pallets into the Oregon market, and nobody said any issues. So we sold the same product twice, but It was scary there for a little bit once I saw how much 200 pallets actually looked like.
Yeah, did you just warehouse those in Vegas for a few days, or how long did you have to hold on to those?
We were at, our warehouse was actually in New York at the time, and I was in LA running the domestic team here, and then we had our warehouse and fulfillment center was in New York, Hauppauge, and so we actually sent everything back there, and then I started figuring out how to offload this stuff to other customers, basically.
Okay. I understand that it's taken you a long time to set up in India. What type of lead times do you offer now? Because you said it was up to 15 weeks at one point when you entered the market?
Yeah. So right now, like if you go to for example, like a Futurola, they're going to hit you with 6 months plus for lead times, right? We're working off of 4 weeks.
Okay. That's got to be an incredible differentiator for you in the market.
It is. We've garnered, I think it's about 60% of the top 200 brands in the industry. We've garnered about, I think it's like 17 of the top 30 MSOs are direct clients. So it is definitely a leg up, and not many people can really compete with us at this point, because a lot of the providers out there, like the Futurolas or Custom Cones USA or something like that, they're just buying capacity from people in India or Indonesia, and they don't actually own or operate these facilities. So they don't have any control or prioritization capabilities. So like if we get a big customer, for example, and they're like, hey, you guys got to hit us in 3 weeks with these cones, or we're going to stick with our current manufacturer, we'll bump them up into the top of the production line and get them the cones in 3 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. No one else is able to do that. And I knew that getting into the pre-roll segment, or any type of manufacturing in general, and you can kind of see it from why a lot of the big packaging companies have kind of died out, is because they just keep getting squeezed and squeezed, not just from the clients, but from the manufacturer themselves. Because the manufacturer is trying to bump up their manufacturing prices, right? When their clients are pushing down on price. And so, like a Kush Bottles in the middle is just kind of getting squeezed out of the picture, right? And so I knew that we needed to own and operate these facilities and not just be another middleman to really take over this segment.
Have you had any issues with quality or managing a foreign workforce?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're making 1.2 billion of anything, you're going to have, I mean, there's roaches in our Doritos, right? So, anytime you're mass producing something like this, there's going to be some type of issues or hiccups along the way. We do have quality problems, very rarely. More so, what happens is, one of our clients might get like a random cone that's printed someone else's cone in their tower box or something like that. But in terms of like quality, we're 100% guaranteed. So if there's any issues, we replace everything 100%. So most clients are pretty, understanding if another brand gets, in their tower box. It's not on purpose. We're sorry, but it does happen. But, we do rectify the situations as fast as possible.
Do some of those mistakes happen because like filling those boxes is automated, or is it a lot of that is the entire process done by hand?
Yeah, so the entire process is done by hand. So usually why that happens is, so let's say we throw in like 1,000 filter tip sheets that need to get die cut. There would be one sheet on the bottom. So like, let's say out of like 1 million cones that we deliver to like a big client, maybe 7 cones might be printed somebody else's by accident, just because one sheet got stuck in there or something. So that's what could happen.
Have you had any issues with the supply chain in terms of, whether it's finding container space or space on a ship coming over?
Yeah, so during COVID, I guess we're out of it now, sort of. But yeah, it was difficult. Just booking containers was a problem. Obviously, the pricing for containers was insane, 13, 14, 15,000 from India. So yeah, a lot of our clients were getting beat up on the shipping prices, which was unfortunate. We were trying to eat as much as we possibly could and just sharing that cost with our clients. And, it was, in terms of supplies, the biggest thing for us was just meeting. So a lot of the states are now like changing their, I guess, microbial or pesticide, what do you call it?
Like regulations or
regulations. Yeah. So like for us, California could change something. So like right now we're dealing with something in like Colorado called like aspergillus, right? Mm-hmm. And they're making it so like there's no allotment for it. So we had to go find like aspergillus-free filter tips, or chromium-free filter tips, or something like that was what a challenge was. But in terms of just getting the raw materials, wasn't that big of a deal. It was more just like the labor problem, because a lot of our labor was in these called red zones where they weren't able to work. So we actually, during COVID, set up like housing facilities at our manufacturing sites and brought in chefs for cooking square meals a day. We had people, we brought in like portable showers and bathrooms and all types of different stuff just to make everybody feel comfortable. Because if you went back to your village, you wouldn't be able to come back. So we really tried to make it super comfortable for people to stay and keep working, because they didn't want to make money, right? They didn't want to stop. Most people don't want to stop working, right? So we did as much as we possibly could during that time. But yeah, it wasn't that difficult. We were shut down for like about 2 months at the longest time. But we actually got a couple of our medical companies from like Israel and here in the States. We actually got letters from them, and we actually got necessity manufacturing from the India government. So we weren't really shut down for that long, because we are making medical grade products.
Did you have any pushback from your workforce given the conditions?
I'm not on the ground there, so I don't know the intricacies of like specific conversations, but I don't think we're forcing anybody to work if they don't want to work. There's over, billions of people that, want a job in India, right?
Okay. Yeah. Where do you source the paper from?
So we actually get our paper from France. We work with a company that's been around for over 100 years. We think it's the best paper in the world. We've gone through a ton of iterations. We've gotten paper from the Czech Republic, we've gotten it from the US, we've gotten it from China, and we've kind of settled on this one company that we get from France, and it's really smooth.
Have you ever considered nearshoring or reshoring any of the production to have a footprint in North America?
So we developed a couple years ago some semi-automatic machinery that took about 15 manual processes and turned it into three. And we basically took that and all of the data we collected from that study and basically turned it into a fully automatic operation. And so we're actually, call it August of next year, we could be producing cones here in the States
Okay.
for just as cost effective as we do in India. So kind of stay tuned. But yeah, we are working on that for sure.
That's exciting. How did that project start?
So it started about 3 years ago when we realized that, we needed to be on the forefront of automation for, the manufacturing side, just because, it's been handmade for over 20 years now. And we knew that, whether or not it was on purpose to keep it handmade, is it, I think there was not a lot of talk about automation because a lot of these companies, like especially the ones in Indonesia, they like need this, right? So like for
Right.
us, we prefer to come back to the States and run an operation here. We had to go to India for necessity, right? So I think for a lot of companies, it's a scary topic to talk about automation because it could obliterate a lot of the third party international companies almost overnight, right?
Mm.
So we are hoping to be the first one, and I think we will be here in the States, and we're setting up a facility right now here in Las Vegas.
When I talk to pre-roll automation equipment manufacturers, one of the biggest issues that they run into is cone consistency. What can you do on your end? I understand that it's a handmade product, but to make more consistent cones so that way they feed into those automated operations a little bit easier.
Totally. So yeah, we work with about 15 different machine companies. So we've had to create like custom tooling for a lot of them. And what we do is really it's about the top opening diameter is the biggest issue because a lot of the machines have like a laser eye that comes down and either accepts the cone as a proper cone or rejects it before it will fill. And so we actually do this thing called safety pack where we put in inverted pieces of paper, a thicker GSM at the top, and like a ring around the cones like this. And it actually keeps them really tight and it doesn't let them move around at all during shipping. And so that helps alleviate a lot of those issues for the automation machines. But we actually invested into a company called Accelerant Manufacturing, and think it's the best automated pre-roll cone making machine on the market. We've worked with Hephaestus and Wannaroll and Paxium and pre-roller and auto cone and everybody. And we thought that Accelerant has a great model. It's a processing as a service model, and so it's a zero capex. You're not spending $250,000 on a machine that you have no idea how to operate, and it's not going to sit in a corner. So I think like a lot of companies right now have a lot of machinery just hanging out in the back of their warehouses, and they don't know how to operate it. A lot of companies don't want to send people out, don't want to train properly. So for us, it's because of the processing as a service model, we're fully aligned. If you're not producing pre-rolls, I'm not making money, right? So a lot of companies, they'll sell you this, $300,000 machine and then say, okay, good luck after the first week of training, right? So, I think for us, cone consistency, we figured out a way to match that where the machines do accept those cones. And obviously we have to conform to different machines and tooling, and every machine is different. But yeah, that's why we kind of got in bed with Accelerant, was just because we were kind of exhausted dealing with this problem that you're discussing right now.
Well, and I like the production as a service model, especially in times like this where CapEx is maybe a little bit, or capital is a little bit harder to come by.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. We have a lot of clients that are super intrigued by the model because even the MSOs are tight right now, right? Everybody's tight right now. And I think a lot of companies, aren't really, there's going to be a lot of evolution in the product development for like, infused pre-rolls and how to automate that. And, a lot of companies are hand rolling those right now. And I think for us, we're developing a lot of SaaS capabilities along with the machine. So like, cataloging every pre-roll that comes off the machine, lot tracing it, taking a photograph of every single pre-roll that comes off the machine and auto uploading it to metric, right? So like there's a lot of things that we're going to try to remove operators as much as we possibly can, just because if you're able to get someone off of these machines and have them doing something else or remove them from the equation in general, especially with the 280E issues, like these companies are looking for this type of stuff, right? They don't want a machine that they need 4 people running, right? They want a machine where they have a half a person.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, especially because it seemed like earlier on in the cannabis industry, there was not the labor shortage because everyone wanted to work into it or wanted to work in it. Then it kind of evolved where, okay, everyone can want to work here, but maybe they're not all as skilled as we need. So I understand how that's becoming a greater issue in the industry.
Yeah, no, and especially you got to look at it from the different markets perspective, right? So like if you're a company in California, you're paying 20-25 an hour, you're not making much money, right? But if you go to like a Michigan where it's like, 10 to 15 an hour, you're probably making more, margin on your product and you can do a lot more hand process stuff. But I think, moving towards the consolidation, the great consolidation, I think a lot of people, they don't want, most, if I was running a plant touching entity, and a company approached me and said, hey, I have this machine that you can pay me on a per joint filled model. And I said, okay, awesome. In 3 years, when you guys develop new technology, I get the new machine, right? Of course you get the machine. We'll repurpose the old one for a smaller client. We'll give you the new creme de la creme. That sounds awesome to me, right? Because I want the latest, greatest to keep everything moving, right? And so I think for a lot of companies that are developing machines and trying to do the the $300,000 price tag, it's just not aligning with where this market's going.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Will cones, in your opinion, always be a part of the cannabis industry?
I mean, look at cigarettes, even though it's a dying industry, they've been around for 50 plus years. I think it's the most convenient consumption method, right? I think most companies, if you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said you could probably find shoelaces in pre-rolls, right? But, in California, when they were filling them right at the counter at the dispensaries. But I think now a lot of people look at pre-rolls as a premium product. And I mean, if you look at most of the brands right now that are number one in the industry are pre-roll brands, right? If you look at we service Jeter, for example, right? They're number one. They mainly only do pre-rolls and that's how they got started, right? So I think a lot of people are now gravitating towards it because even me as a consumer, I don't want to roll. I don't have time to roll. I'm just going to find a brand that's creating a great high quality product that is a pre-roll.
Yeah, I mean, tobacco has been a dying industry my entire life. So, and I mean, unfortunately, it's a bit longer these days. Getting a bit old. Talking, you had mentioned something about finding a shoelace in a pre-roll. What was that?
So, back in the day, like 2015, they used to fill the pre-rolls at the dispensary counters.
Okay.
And it was literally just some random, person standing at the front counter with a rolling tray and a blender, if you would. And literally it's dust on a rolling tray and they're just filling pre-rolls all day, right? It was just like the shittiest quality. Nobody wanted them. They were free. Most pre-rolls were free up until about probably 3-4 years ago, right? And so now people look at pre-rolls because we've shifted consumer, I guess, buying patterns. We've shifted it to where pre-rolls are now a premium product, right? You look at the Lowells of the world or, Low Farms and, a few other ones and the Jeters, right? You could get a pre-roll for up to like 40, 50, $60 now, right? And that could be a regular dog walker, a multi-pack. And I think like the multi-packs are now becoming more of just like the 12 pack of beer, right?
Okay.
And I think that's what people are looking for. They don't want to go to the dispensary every day. They want variety, quality, and easy consumption.
You have Hara Supply, Hemper. I think you have Hara Brands as well, and another company. How do you manage all of those on a day-to-day basis?
So basically Hemper is more of our branded e-commerce store and brand. And I have a full team that manages that side. I do get involved heavily as well. But most of my day is dealing with a lot of our enterprise level clients, getting new clients on board, dealing with our MSOs. A lot of these clients want to talk to me. They get comfort in, hey, Bryan, are we going to be on time for this delivery? No matter how much I try to step away from the conversation, they just still want to pull me back in, which is fine. I love helping and want to make sure everybody's happy and we're meeting expectations. But I think we have about, I think it's 53 people domestic here right now. So I have like a full sales team that goes out there that I help manage. I have a product development team that I meet with on a weekly basis. So we just have a lot of like internal meetings where we're just keeping up to date. But we have a lot of like heads of these departments that I sit with, and we kind of go through everything.
Have you ever looked at a Hemper box and had to go back to the team and just said, hey, what are we doing here?
Yes, I was spending yesterday redoing some boxes, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I mean, I get it with like a subscription service. That's something where if somebody gets a bad box 1 month, they could probably just cut it off right there.
Yeah, no, I think so. I am the alpha consumer here, right? So my consumption methods have changed, but I think I know, starting the boxes, and really it was just like, because I was like a post-college kid. So it was really like what I wanted to see in the box, but I had to be unbiased, right? Because I'm catering to all these different walks of life, right? You have the 21 to 35 smokers, you got the 35 to 55-year-olds, you got the 55 to 70. So I had to really cater to different people. And so I had to be unbiased with it. So even now today, we're going through the products, and the way we do the boxes is it's like, we do like themes every month. So we kind of keep it, really fun and novelty, and they've become more of like a kind of like a sneaker collection, right? So like Mondays I'm smoking out of my rubber ducky bong, and Wednesdays I'm smoking out of my, Dragon Ball Z bong, whatever it might be, right? And so I think for us, keeping it fun is the most important and functional, because the price point is super economic. And so I was going through boxes the other day just because we want to make sure every touch point, the customer's happy, right? Whether it's selling them cones, selling them paraphernalia products. So I tap into both sides of the business because both are equally important, right? And that's the unique thing about our business, is we see it from a B2C perspective, and we see it from an enterprise level B2B perspective, right? And it's intriguing because we've collected all this data on customers and cadence and purchasing patterns, and just like products and all these different things that people are buying. And so I think for us, it allows us to develop new age products where people are like, whoa, that's exactly what I wanted, right? Without even knowing they needed it, is our job at this point.
What did you mean when you called yourself an alpha consumer, and how have your tastes changed over the years?
So I guess alpha consumer meaning like so on a spectrum of purchasing, basically, there's the customer who will like look at something once, think about it, look at it a second time, think about it, look at it a third time, think about it, right? If I see something and I like it or I want to try it, probably first time I'm buying into it. Right. Okay. I do a little slight research, but I kind of just pull the trigger, right? If it sucks, I return it. If it's awesome, great. Right. So I think for a lot of customers, they don't pull the trigger as quick as I do. And so that's what I mean by more alpha, where I'm pulling the trigger as fast as I possibly can, because this is intriguing, right? And so for a lot of the cannabis consumption products, I'm smoking, daily, right? I'm a daily user. So I test a lot of the products. A lot of the ideas we come up with kind of stem from, certain, usage patterns or habits I have. Like, for example, we developed this thing called the Isoplex, and it's basically like this little easy travel compartment thing that you can organize all your tools and gadgets and stuff, because I was going from like my office to the kitchen to my room back to my office, and like carrying 1,000 different things. And so a lot of the products are coming from personal necessity at this point, right? Okay. We're testing things out, we're working with different materials, and I think that's why what I mean by alpha is like I'm testing and buying, and we're consistently doing this so we can deliver the best products to our customers, as opposed to like a lot of what the market is. It's like, hey, I had like a high idea today and had enough money for like a 3D printed version. That's
Okay.
not what we're doing, right? It's rapid prototyping with, $20,000, $30,000 3D printers here, sending that off to India, getting molds made quickly, and really bringing products to market as fast as we possibly can. Because the customers, again, are looking for this stuff. They just don't know they need it.
Hmm. Did you just say you had ideas?
That's what I meant. Where like a lot of companies in this industry, it's where the product is the brand,
Yeah.
and that's kind of all they do. And so we've created more of like here's our brands, more of the Procter and Gamble approach, where each brand is servicing a different consumer and a segment, and each product servicing a different need. So
Okay.
it's very calculated.
Oh, okay. How much of the cone market do you have now?
So obviously this isn't like recorded or anything, but I want to say my number right now is about 250 million cones a month is what the market needs.
Hmm.
And so I would say I'm about 30% of the total cone market right now.
Okay. How do you go about finding new customers? Are a lot of people coming to you after issues with other manufacturers, or is it selling yourself word of mouth?
Yeah, so I think a lot of customers end up getting bad experiences with these middlemen companies like the Futurolas and the Custom Cones USAs of the world. And because they don't control the process or the operation, and things just go awry. So you don't really know if your cones are being made in India or Indonesia, or by maybe they split the order into three different facilities. And so there's going to be discrepancies for your cones, and basically you're going to get a bunch of like hodgepodge, right, of
Hmm.
like this size, this configuration. So for us, because we're making this stuff under one roof, it's basically all consistent. And so for us, we get a ton of inquiries into like our online store and all that, and then we do a ton of outreach. So we go to like trade shows. We're at MJ BizCon, we're at the Hall of Flower shows, and so we try to garner as much business as possible and a little bit of word of mouth. But a lot of people in this industry, when they get something good, they keep it close to the chest, you
Hmm.
know, and because, if everyone's a competitor at this point, and everyone's trying to build the Coca-Colas of the world. So like, if we're selling to Jeter and they got the best pre-rolls on the market, I don't think they're going to Stizzy and saying, hey guys, go buy from here. Right.
Yeah.
No.
Right. What did you think of MJ BizCon this year?
Not bad. Uh, I think they need some work with two things. One is organizing the show floor.
Hmm.
It's all over the place, right? If I want to go and see all the machinery, it should be in one location,
Hmm.
not on three different floors and two
Right.
different buildings, right? They should have suppliers, in the same area, right? Are you a packaging supplier? Are you a raw material supplier? What are, right? And I think a lot of the brands need to be in the same place, right? And so I think it's a floor setup issue where it's just kind of like, oh, you'll go from like a cannabis brand to a processing company to a extraction machine, and then you'll get, it's just kind of like all over the place. And I
Hmm.
think that's an issue because for a lot of these companies, they want solutions and they need to find them quickly. They only have 2 or 3 days here, right? They have meetings, they're going all over the place. If you can go to one section of the show, here's all the extraction equipment, right? Go talk
Hmm.
to everyone, right? Or maybe even do like some type of matchmaking at the show, right? Where, maybe people who are exhibiting say, hey, I would like to talk to, this is the kind of customer profile I'd like to speak with, or hey, this is the type of company I would like to speak with for on a manufacturing level or a processing level, right? And so I think those are two things they could really work on, is a matchmaking side and also just making the show floor make sense.
What are your predictions for federal legalization? And do you find with how your operation is run, you're set up better for some of the standardization that is likely to come with it?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone's like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
I think we're closer to probably 10 years.
Yeah.
I've been on a lot of podcasts that talk about this, and I think the biggest issue is the taxes, right? And the taxes in a lot of states are already really high. So I have a hard time quantifying how the federal government is going to play nice with the states on adding more taxes,
Okay.
right? When there's 280, they're already on, most aren't profitable. How are we going to increase taxes on a federal level when they can't really even play ball currently?
Okay.
right? And so I have a hard time figuring out how the state and the federal government are going to figure that out, right? Because the state's
Okay.
going to say, "Screw you, federal government! It's our money. This is, this is us," and the federal government's going to say, "No, no, no. This is our money, right? We're allowing you to do this,
Hmm.
right?" And so I think that's going to take several years. I mean, look at safe banking. We're getting screwed around left and right with it, right? So
Right.
I, I don't see it for 10 years. And honestly, I talked to a lot of people that touch the plant. They don't want it to go federal.
Yeah. No, I hear the same.
They make the most money now
Hmm.
when it's restricted and hard to get into and hard to figure out. And I think once it goes federal, like I think the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is I live in Vegas. I just want interstate commerce between California and Vegas,
Okay.
right? Like if you look at the quality differences, it's insane, right? You come to Vegas, it's dry, terrible flavor profile, it's just awful. You go to California, it's unbelievable. Once California can do interstate commerce, I think most states, unless they impose like a crazy interstate commerce tax, California's going to be able to supply the entire country.
Hmm. Hmm. No, and I think that's where a lot of that pushback is coming as well, because they don't necessarily want to kill cultivation in the other 49.
Exactly. And that's why. So I don't think it's going to play out like everyone wants it to. I think it's going to take several years to really get something going here. And I think, once obviously the FDA gets involved, I think a big thing, because if you look at like cigarettes, like it's basically been blends for like the last 50 plus years, right? So,
Hmm.
and I've talked to a lot of the big tobacco companies, those FDA agents don't come around to those plants ever. They haven't seen them in 20 years, right?
Okay.
So how are we going to make, like, if you even take a pre-roll, for example, are we going to do like 66%, cannabis THC, and we're going to do 33% CBD blend and somehow come up with a way where people don't kill themselves, right? Or, is it going to be, lower THC levels, right? Once the FDA gets involved, is it, what is it going to, it's going to be kind of just all over the place, in my opinion. So I try to say let's use the framework from tobacco, but it just doesn't work.
Okay. When a new market comes online, how do you guys prepare to enter that market and go after some of the new companies as they come online?
Yeah, so it depends on the state. Some states, a lot of the licensed information is available and you
Mhm.
get emails and phone numbers, and then some states it's not available. So we just really, we actually leverage, if it's available, like we use like headset data to
Mhm.
look at newer states. And then also we see, the state websites have a lot of information as well, but a lot of them don't give out the information. So we're kind of having to be like, it's a lot of manual data entry to figure out who the decision maker is. Because I don't know if you looked at a lot of the newer states, but when you look at the records, it's oftentimes the lawyer who filed the application, and it's not actually the company. So it's a lot of digging and research.
Okay. Do you need to save a more premium product for the mature markets like California? And then can you kind of, are they not as demanding in the newer markets?
So the newer markets are interesting because there's no infrastructure set up there for like a lot of the paraphernalia and cones and things like that. So a
Hmm.
lot of people really hit us up and they say like, "Hey, we just started in Oklahoma," or "Hey, we just started here," or "Hey, we're just started in Missouri. We'd love to bring in your products, or we'd love to purchase from you," because I think a lot of companies aren't. There's no like hubs, right? Like
Hmm.
no one just said, "Oh, I'm going to go set up in Oklahoma one day and it's going to go legal, and then we're going to have it's like a cash and carry kind of style, right?" So I think like a lot of markets are under serviced, so that's why we get reached out to a lot. But I think for right now in the industry, everyone's trying to develop the Coca-Colas of the world, and I think pre-rolls are becoming more premium, and I think people are trying to get away from the lower tier, bottomed out pricing, because I think I looked like wholesale prices in California are like, I don't know, $600 a pound now. So it's already bottomed out, or it is bottoming out, and I
Hmm.
think a lot of people look at cannabis differently, because like when I find a strain that I like, I'm like married to it, right? And
Hmm.
I don't typically get sick of it. The problem is I think people look at cannabis like ice cream, and they want chocolate one day, they want mint chocolate chip the next day, they want coffee the next day, they want a sherbet the next day. And I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, because we're going to keep developing lineage and genetics and, all different types of flavor profiles and terpene profiles. And so, it's unfortunate right now, most of the market's shopping by THC content, which is the whole stupid thing. But, a lot of people are, getting flack for it, for, saying, oh, there's 40+% THC in this product, but, you're really only consuming maybe like 20% of that, right? Or, less, because most of it burns off because it's distillate or diamonds or something. You're not really inhaling a lot of that. It's burning off. So I think, newer markets, it's like just pound the pavement, get something on the shelf. And I think for the existing markets, it's, focus on the brand, drive true quality, and develop that brand equity through customer interaction. And, we always say this, there's the 3 C's of, enterprise. It's community, commerce, and content, right? And so I think if you have all 3 of those, you have a winning product and brand. But if you don't connect with the community, you're just going to be what they call the culture vultures,
What is your personal connection to the plant?
Personal connection. So I've actually been consuming for quite a bit of my life. Probably, I'm 31. I've probably been consuming for about half of it. So, one of my buddies, I think I was maybe in the 9th grade or something when I smoked my first joint. And right now, my relationship with it is a major sleep aid for me. My brain is going 1,000 different directions at all times. And I don't know if you've seen what's Queen's Gambit, the chess show on Netflix, where she's like sitting in bed looking at the chessboard like this, and and the chess is on the ceiling. That's literally me, unless I smoke. So it helps me calm down, relax, kind of zone out from a lot of, we're, pushing, 9-figure business here, right? So it's a lot,
No, I understand that there's, got to be a significant amount of stress that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I feel like it's funny. I had a meeting with a big tobacco company, Philip Morris, a couple weeks ago at MJ BizCon, and they're really focused on medical products and inhaler devices and different consumption devices for medical side. And I was explaining to the lady, I said, most of the cannabis community is smoking recreationally, right? And whether you can visualize that or not, and I guarantee you, if you go to any dispensary in the country right now, I don't even know if you'll find a medical inhaler device, right? And the only medical grade product that I really have found to be actually successful in this industry was Epidiolex from GW Pharma. And I think that these inhalation devices and these, different aerosol, like there's a few companies that are developing stuff. It's awesome and it's great. And I think for certain things like, epilepsy and, different, medical issues, like serious medical issues, I think makes sense. But most consumers, I think, are consuming recreationally, whether it's for social purposes, for sleeping, for calming down, anxiety, whatever. But most people know medical is just a precursor to rec, is what I'm trying to say.
When were you anointed King of Cones? Was there a ceremony?
No, I think it was our PR firm wanted me to go out with more of a grandiose title, and so we, instead of saying King of Bongs, it was King of Cones.
Okay. Well, I feel like you can say 1.2 billion cones per year, and that's going to turn some heads.
Yeah, no, for sure. We definitely came out of nowhere. We're one of the few groups in this industry that really, over delivers, right? And we actually do what we say and say what we do. And, in this industry, that is so rare, just to have like very baseline common practice where you're actually delivering on what you're going to do or say you're going to do. And I think a lot of the other kind of contributing factor is that we've just been so flexible, right? I can't tell you how many times I talk to top companies and they're like, and a lot of them don't know. They're like, oh, can you put our logo on the filter tip? And I'm like, yes, of course we can do that.
Yeah.
It's just printing on paper. There's nothing different than printing on a box. It's all kind of similar. And so I think for us as being this solutions partner, really guiding the client towards what they want or what they need. And, we've been one of the biggest perpetuators for the dog walker movement, right? We've sold hundreds of millions of really small pre-rolls. And I think the multi-pack dog walkers are, a significant channel and lane in this industry where I think you're going to see that consistently growing over time, because most people don't need a full gram pre-roll to get high, right? They just want a little bit just to get right. And so I think that's where we can aid a lot of value, is for these new markets where, hey, we want to come out with like a 0.25 multi-pack. What's that size look like? Oh, well, in previous markets, we've done, a 55 or a 65, millimeter joint, and that works great for clients. And so a lot of people just don't even know what they need or where they're going. And so we aid a lot of value in helping them get products to market.
Whether it's from the cone side of the business or the paraphernalia side of the business, what product innovation are you the most proud of?
Product innovation that I'm most proud of.
You mentioned when people come to you and wanting to print the logo on the tip or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's we just launched a new product. I don't have one sitting here, but it's called a quick hitter. And it's the world's first disposable flavored one hitters. And basically what we did was we took a paper straw and added a ceramic chamber at the end that you pack your material in. And it's got like a little built-in filter tip where it has like a caramel crush ball that you squeeze and it activates the flavor. And literally all you have to do is just pack, light, and puff. And we're actually going after the national C-store distribution now for it. And so it's kind of a new age product, especially, I don't know if you're familiar with like the flavor bans going on, but LA County is going to ban flavored cigars and cigarettes starting January 15th. And so a lot of big companies are going to lose hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And also on the C-store storefront level, a lot of the people coming into these stores are buying tobacco products, and because they're going to be the back bar is going to kind of disappear, about 60% of it. We're developing these products for these stores, and we're getting ahead of the game. And so we actually launched at National Association for Convenience Stores, the trade show here in Vegas, in October, and we've done pretty well so far, and it's really exciting. If I don't even smoke a joint anymore, I'll literally just pack these up and dispose of it afterwards.
Well, I think that's got to be part of the pride, is that when you personally enjoy the product.
Yes. And again, we're developing, we kind of go into these things with like use cases. So it's like, hey, if 7-Eleven was going to sell a one hitter, what would it look like? Right. And that's how we go into the room to develop these products. There's a use case for this, right? And where is the market going? We're trying to think 3, 5, 10, 15 years ahead, right? Because that's how you have to play in this industry right now. You cannot think, everyone's focused on the next 6 months, the next 30 days, the next 12 months, right? It's not going to help you. You need to be thinking way further.
When you first started your business coming out of college, would you have ever expected that you would be where you are today?
No. If you told younger Bryan at 24 when I started this how it would have turned out, I would have said, you're lying. But, I love what I do. I love working with my business partners and the whole team. And I love, furthering this industry, and I love pioneering it. And it's weird to say that, and it took us a while to really use that word because it kind of sounds weird, right? When you're like, oh, we're pioneering this industry. And you're just like, you kind of at one point just accept that you know what you're doing and you're playing the chess game better than most companies, and you just kind of own it. And you just, go on and keep building.
Thank you very much for being so gracious with your time today. I really appreciate it. Before we get out of here, is there anything in particular you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience knows about Hara Supply or any of your other companies?
Totally, yes. So if you're looking for cones, our website is harasupply.com, and you can reach out to me personally at Bryan, Bryan, at harasupply.com. If you're a dispensary owner or anything like that and you're looking for paraphernalia to merchandise your stores, please visit harabrands.com, and you can see all of our different paraphernalia products and brands. And then, like I said, you can email me directly, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Well, thanks again for taking the time today. I really do appreciate it.
No, totally. Thank you for having me.
Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You'd also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. Well, for King of Cones, Bryan Gerber, CEO of Hara Supply, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.